I'm Fuzzy Orange and I live in Morgan County. I'd like to tell you about a place I love to visit. Believe it or not, one of the true national treasures of the United States is in Morgan County. While traveling State Highway 52 east of Jamestown, you will come upon a real Victorian English village nestled next to the Big South Fork National Park. In 1880, the civilized world watched as British author, statesman, and social reformer Thomas Hughes dedicated America's rugby. It was to be a cooperative, class-free community where Britain's younger sons of gentry, tradesmen, and farming families from Britain and America could build new lives through agriculture and high Christian principles. Thomas Hughes called it a lovely corner of God's earth. In this century, it is called a town of cultural ghosts and utopia in the wilderness. The National Trust called it one of the best preserved historic villages in America. By 1884, the population of Rugby topped 300. There was over 70 structures, including boarding houses, a church, and a library, which are still being used. There are over 20 of the original buildings still there. Some of the other buildings, including a dairy, a butcher shop, a commissary, a school, a hotel, a stable, and 3 sawmills. The community even published its own newspaper. The tour starts at the Visitor Center, where you'll be able to trace rugby's history through the centuries. Thomas Hughes' mother, Margaret, came from England on a sailing ship to the East Tennessee wilderness in May of 1881. She lived in Rugby until her death at age of 90 in 1887. She is buried in the local cemetery. Some of her personal belongings are in the Visitor Center.
My great-grandfather, Robert Walton was his name, and he came here from Cincinnati, Ohio, where he was a civil engineer and a surveyor. Some of the people involved with rugby in the earliest days got him to come down and help do survey work, and he liked it so much that he decided he would bring his young family down here, including my grandmother and her older brother. So they moved in 1881, and he raised a family of 5 children here while he was working for the Board of Aid to Land Ownership, which was the organization that sold land to settlers, colonists here in Rugby.
The crown jewel of Rugby is the Hughes Public Library. It is literally unchanged since its opening on October 1882. There are more than 7,000 volumes of Victorian literature still on the shelves, amid original furnishings. It is recognized as the most complete collection of Victorian literature in America. Many of the books have been signed by their authors. Christ Church Episcopal, built in 1887, is still used for services every Sunday.
The church was built with the number 3 in mind for the Trinity. It was built by Cornelius Onderdonk, and we have 3 main beams which represent the Trinity, and we have 3 beams above that. Our windows are done in 3s with 3 little arches over each one.
The 1849 rosewood organ came from England. It was used at the first service and is used for more than 100 years before being replaced by a modern-day keyboard. The lighting is the original hanging oil lamps, now converted to electricity. The stained glass windows came from Germany and was installed when the church was built. The Newberry House, the first boarding house in Rugby, is now a bed and breakfast, offering overnight guests a taste of Victorian atmosphere. Sit on the front porch and see the field where the original residents played lawn tennis and croquet. And they wore their little old knickers and stuff, and they would croquet all over this field. They also had, this is also a tennis field sometimes. They put the net up and they'd play tennis. But I don't know how to do a backhand. I guess you do it like that. But anyway, this was the finest croquet field in all of America in the 1880s. The annual Festival of British and Appalachian Culture is held each May. Get more details at historicrugby.org. Historic Rugby is located between Highway 27 and 127 on Highway 52 in Morgan County.